Hello everyone, I'm Captain Courageous and I review old school modules and games and try to give them a fun and informative analysis. This week I'm doing something a little bit different. I'm going to be going over the history of the world of Hyperborea from the Hyperborea RPG. Now, I've had quite a few requests for this in the comments, so I thought I would just go ahead and make a video on that. I'm pretty much going to be reading directly from the Hyperborea Referee's Guide because it's presented in what I consider high Talanian. The author of the rules is Jeffrey Talanian, and he was a student of Gary Gygax in more than one way, as you'll find as I go through the text. So let's just go ahead and get started with a brief history of Hyperborea. In the eons before the rise of the Hyperboreans, little is known. Rare forbidden tomes suggest that extra-dimensional beings arrived at old Earth shortly after the dawn of time, when the oceans roiled and meteors pounded the young planet. Evidence shows that these otherworldly races, the Elder Things, Great Race, and Migo, engaged in countless wars over untold ages. More apparent, as demonstrated by ruins scattered about the realm, is the ascendancy of the Snake Men. For unrecounted ages before mankind arose from the lowly depths of apedom, these reptilian humanoids ruled the Hyperborean continent and beyond. Extant carvings suggest a prevailing tropical climate during the epoch of the Snake Men. Sages deduced that these superintelligent creatures commanded sorceries and sciences scarcely since achieved. The reason for the fall of the Snake Man Empire has yet to be deciphered, though evidence suggests lengthy conflicts with the Deep Ones. The Vermi, or Beastmen, a race of quasi-men whose origins are traced to the Spiral Mountain Array, were next to rise to prominence. Some suggest that an otherworldly race catalyzed the Vermi from bestial obscurity to semi-intelligence and technological proficiency. Regardless, for an uncountable period, these apish humanoids dominated the realm. Ultimately, they regressed to their savage roots and betook themselves to the hoary depths of the Spiral Mountain Array. The rise of the Hyperboreans is mired in the embellished myths and legends of its people. Allegedly, this race of gaunt, pale-skinned sorcerer kings and witch queens were the progeny of the Boreads. This trio of supernaturally gifted giants engendered a paradisial land of eternal spring and sunshine beyond the north wind. The Boreads were held to have taken mortal wives and so begot the Hyperboreans, a precocious race esteemed for their preternatural aptitudes and uncanny longevity. Some sages discount tales of the Boreads. Indeed, they posit that the Hyperboreans, much like the Vermi before them, may have been impelled by unearthly sponsors. Most Hyperboreans vehemently reject this notion. Regardless, Hyperborea became the most powerful realm of the antediluvian kingdoms, accepting tributes from cavals such as Atlantis, Lemuria, and Mu. The Hyperboreans knew not war, famine, disease, hard toil, or the ravages of age, and they venerated Apollo, who was said to walk amongst them. Their empire was peerless, and they disparaged and trivialized the lesser races of mankind. While the Hyperboreans perfected their arts, sciences, and sorceries, other humans floundered in various states of savage primitivism. Over time, the most puissant Hyperborean sorcerers were shown the eldritch secrets of Zathaqua, an otherworldly emigre dwelling in the heart of the Spiral Mountain Array. Zathaqua sent select Hyperboreans on sojourns to Saturn and beyond, and in due course his glorification prevailed throughout the realm. The Sibyls of Hyperborea long had presaged the advent of the Ashen Worm through geometry, geomancy, hydromancy, and hypotomancy, when all the portents of the worm's arrival were satisfied, and when at length it arose from the sea in its citadel of ice, the sorcerer kings and witch queens fled to their fastnesses beneath the Spiral Mountain Array. Soon the worm affected thaumaturgy that mantled the once winterness realm in glacial ice. Hyperborea was swallowed, a lost continent, soon joined by its contemporaries Atlantis, Lemuria, and Mu. Eons later, when the ice thawed and the mist parted, Hyperborea's connection to old Earth was no more than a mystical abstraction. Hyperborea found itself an isolated realm, its icy sea terminating in waterfalls that cascaded to infinity. Beyond the world's rim lay the North Wind, and beyond the North Wind the Black Gulf, airless, black as pitch, and colder than any winter. A bloated red sun that shed little warmth wheeled around the horizon in a 13-year circuit. Also, Hyperborea now was attended by 2 ellipsoid moons, one large and aquamarine, the other small and ruddy brown. Saturn was discernibly larger than any of the other stars in the firmament, all of which shone dimmer as though glimpsed through a smoky lens. After the ice thawed, seeds took root, and newly released pollens floated on the wind. Soon forests bristled and poppy fields swelled. Then stirred the beasts and monsters. Some materialized from the ice or emerged from subterranean depths. Others arrived via mystical portals. Hither came the savage races of mankind, non-Hyperboreans originating from old Earth. They crossed the veil and colonized the pristine continent, their respective arrivals oft associated with the manifestation of the aurora borealis or the blowing of the boreas. When at length the Hyperboreans emerged from their sanctuaries below the spiral mountain array, they beheld the astonishing changes to the world they once had known. The giant red sun, 2 ellipsoid moons, and soaring mountains. The race of sorcerers and witches descended to reclaim the jewel of their empire of old, Cromarium. Although along the way they noted the advent of terrible beasts and monsters, as well as the infiltration of savages. These latter were paid no more heed than apes or dogs to be slaughtered or enslaved as whims dictated. In the spiral towers of Cromarium, the Hyperboreans reassumed their power and station. They languished in their superiority. No effort to expand the old Hyperborean kingdom was engendered. Forsooth, the sorceress race seemed content to remain in Cromarium, unconcerned and unheeding of what transpired without. They entered an age of inestimable decadence and hedonism. They took to chewing lotus leaves and indulged in pleasures unspeakably perverse. To wit, the Hyperboreans stagnated as the savages beyond the gates progressed. Many generations later, there came to pass a phenomenon that was presaged, albeit ignored, or forgotten, by the lotus-chewing Hyperboreans. From the dimly lit heavens descended a silvery green comet that burned across the Hyperborean sky for 20 days and nights. In its wake fell showers of dust and particles that blanketed the whole of the realm in a putrid greenish hue, on trees and earth, hills and mountains, plains and tundra, and even on the surface of the water the eldritch dust was omnipresent. At length the dust faded, but soon after arose the plague known as the Green Death. It swept across the realm, extinguishing savage and civilized people alike. Cromarium, for instance, was left a lifeless husk, and few amongst the ancient race of lotus-chewing sorcerers escaped to their old shelters in the Spiral Mountain array. Gauntless ruins were left in the plague's wake. Pictish fortresses, Viking colonies, Celtic towns, Eskimo fishing villages, and more. Nomadic tribes such as the Chimerians carried the disease with them across the Hyperborean plains, and Amazon trading ships brought it back to their island nation. Sages suggest that perhaps 90% of mankind was wiped out by the Green Death. Centuries later, barbarian refugees were amongst the first to rebound. They claimed Cromarium, and presently their descendants rule it as a city-state. The Green Death, having taken its toll a millennium ago, is the measuring stick by which modern Hyperborean history is traced. The bulk of pre-Green Death history, as illustrated by the brevity of this treatise, is a casualty of a bygone age. Furthermore, the intervening centuries betwixt the plague years and recovery are widely regarded as a dark age. The plague's impact on the bestial and otherworldly races of Hyperborea is nebulous. Little doubt exists that these creatures have proliferated about the realm, perhaps emboldened by mankind's regression, or, more frighteningly, wholly irrespective of its position. After mankind endured the plague years of the Green Death and the ensuing Dark Age, a new age of enlightenment commenced. The Common Era calendar was adopted by the most distinguished sages, who esteemed the work of old Earth's Dionysus exiguous. The first year was reckoned as Genesis, year 1, the bear, and years prior to the CE years were counted as BCE, before the Common Era. So began the rebirth of learning in civilization, which Cromarium is the cradle. In sooth, it is no coincidence that Common Era chronology first was reckoned upon the formation of the Sages' Guild of Cromarium, when the learned came together to collate and preserve the erudition of the ancients. And there you have it, the history of Hyperborea. If you stuck with me all the way to the end, I thank you very much. I'd also like to take the opportunity to thank my patrons, without whom these kinds of videos just simply would not be possible. Please take a moment to give this video a like, comment, and share. Don't forget to check out my Teespring store, where you can pick up some cool gaming swag such as t-shirts, coffee mugs, and more. Be sure to check out my Facebook page, RPG Retro Reviews, where you can just have a lot of fun talking about various topics of Dungeons & Dragons and old school role-playing games. To become a Patreon, please visit my Patreon page. And if you'd like to leave a tip, Super Thanks is on. And also, you can leave a tip through my PayPal tip jar. Once again, thank you so much for watching the video. And as always, my friends, may your D20 roll true and game on.